Take British comedian Catherine Tate, multiply her by 6, and then toss her in a women's prison, and you've got the new Netflix comedy Hard Sell. Is this so funny it's criminal, or so cringy that it should be locked away forever? This documentary-style comedy is set in the fictional female prison HMP Woldsley, with Catherine Tate playing multiple characters. Set over a 6-week period during which the inmates rehearse a musical, rehearsals draw together an oddball collection of women as they find their voices, grow in confidence, and strengthen their friendships while looking at the comical truth of prison life. This has the feel of familiar comedies that are presented in a pseudo-documentary style. Now think The Office or Parks and Rec, where the characters are aware of the camera breaking that fourth wall in a way to speak directly at us as the audience, even though we're not a character within what's playing out. This is 6 episodes that are each under 30 minutes, so it's a very quick binge. And even though each episode has its own antics and story arcs, there's a central story focus on the inmates preparing to put on a musical with the hopes that the governor of the prison can show how the creative arts can help as a rehabilitation tool. Catherine Tate plays 6 different roles within this. Now she's the governor of the prison, one of the guards, 3 inmates, and then the mammy of one of the prisoners. She's dry, sarcastic, grating, ridiculous, and over the top. And she crafts each of her characters to be larger than life, with each bringing their own set of oddities, humor, and sometimes charm. I thought she was fantastic, and it's a lot of fun to watch her take on so many different personalities. She has a second in command at the prison, played by Christian Brassington. Now, if you close your eyes and listen to him, I think he sounds exactly like Martin Freeman, even down to the enunciations and the speaking cadence. But the character he plays has this ongoing gag that is childish and stupid, but also mostly funny. And I love seeing his reactions and his expressions in the background of a scene where he's clearly not the focus, but he's also very clearly meant to be seen so that we don't miss his reaction. The overall comedy in this show is uneven. Now, sometimes I laughed out loud. Mostly I did chuckle, but there were also times where the jokes and the gags just felt completely forced, and they were decidedly unfunny. I'd say it was more fun than not, but the consistency wasn't there in how the jokes were executed. I liked a lot of the various inmates that we get to see. Some are scary or intimidating, others are meeker or even caring. And I like that we get to see growth within the characters, even though not a ton of time is spent on developing each one out. The progress is noticeable in a quick amount of time, which is inspiring, but it also doesn't feel cheap or unearned. I was pleasantly surprised that this chose to bring in some small dramatic elements to mix with the comedy. Now, while the majority of the arcs aren't excessively deep or introspective, there's just the right amount of seriousness to balance out the tone for a large portion of the story. But that being said, there was a definite tonal shift in the final episode that almost felt out of place. The dramatic element felt like it was doubled down on, which then took the show from being comedic with a little bit of emotional drama into a full-blown drama with almost a mysterious angle. That change was very abrupt and an odd choice, especially within how the tone of the season concludes. Now, this didn't ruin the series, but the confusion that it caused also didn't leave me with an overwhelmingly positive feeling about the show. And I'm not talking about a happy ending versus a sad ending. I'm just saying that I was grooving along with the show that felt like it was clearly sitting in a particular genre, to then change on a dime and become something entirely different. There was no adjustment period or smooth transition, just poof, now we're doing this. It then makes me very curious at where they'll take a future season, if it even gets one. Now, the production is really well executed. The interview footage is sometimes interspersed with CCTV footage, which helps as transitions, but there are also just jump cuts between different scenes and interactions, and because of the documentary style that's already been established, these edits, they feel normal. I love how the camera is used in small ways to accentuate comedic elements. Like, it will refuse to pan to capture something an inmate clearly and then vocally wants it to capture. I mean, it's like a small willful disobedience that the camera takes on, which then makes the inmate's reactions all the more humorous. Now, I binged all 6 episodes back to back, but there was a point somewhere in the middle of that binge where I considered taking a break for a bit. It's not like the show was bad or becoming unenjoyable. I just found myself laughing or even chuckling less and less. I figured maybe the break would then reignite some of the humor. The pace was also a little slow in spots, which was probably most noticeable when bits and gags were repeated multiple times. But as it stands, the show had its share of fun, but it just wasn't a gutbuster from start to finish, which then fairly I never expected it to be. So overall, Hard Sell is a humorous take on prison life, seen from both the perspectives of those incarcerated and those in charge. There's a good amount of humor, and the cast is pretty adept with their comedic timing. Catherine Tate is excellent in all of her roles, making some cringy, some sympathetic, sarcastic, or brash, and others just downright insane. Now, while this isn't a non-stop laugh fest, the majority of the jokes do land well, and I think they'll put a smile on your face. And even though the pacing is a bit uneven, on the whole, the series creates an enjoyable and engaging storyline with compelling characters and a narrative to become invested in. The biggest drawback I have with the show is the massive tonal shift at the end, where the abruptness was confusing and it ended the show on a much more serious note. There's no sex, but definitely sexual references and innuendo, some creative hiding of nudity, a ton of profanity, and some violence. I give Hard Sell 3.5 out of 5 couches. So, are you a fan of Catherine Tate? What's something you've enjoyed seeing her in? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.